Welcome to Kidmin Backstage, the place where we talk about kids ministry and take a peek behind the scenes. We try to share a little bit of what we've learned that works for us and some of our failures so you can avoid them. We release a new episode every Friday, and this is your Backstage Pass to see the magic or disaster that happens behind the scenes of our kids ministry. I'm your host, Gabe Baker, and today I am joined by Brother Kyle. How's it going?
Hey, it's going well.
Good. Well, here we are.
We got it.
We're ready to go, I think. Kind of scrambled last minute, getting set up and everything.
Yep.
But what are we talking about?
Well, today we're talking about don't bury it.
Don't bury it. So, I try to, with the thumbnails for YouTube, I just keep, it's like a frame from the podcast or whatever. And sometimes I just let YouTube do it. But, man, this would be really cool. Like, I was just picturing like a shovel or a guy with a shovel or something.
That'd be something cool. Yeah, you could do. It actually doesn't take very long. I made a few videos and made the thumbnails for them, and it actually doesn't take a crazy amount of time. Now, if you want to be really like extravagant and stuff like that, then they do, but there's actually some programs where you can do like super fast. So
well, yeah, and I could create it. I guess one thing is I'm trying to be sustainable with the podcast and keep it going. But the other thing is like, for like the covers on the audio side, I want people to recognize the podcast, the Kidmin Backstage. But all right, so don't bury it. So as Sunday school leaders, we have this. I'm going to have to read some of this, but we were just talking about. I didn't memorize it. Mm-hmm. So we carry a profound responsibility. God has placed unique gifts, talents, resources in our care, and not just for us to keep it safe or hoard it, but to multiply.
Right.
And so the parable of the talents in Matthew 25 is a reminder that faithfulness isn't measured in preserving or preservation, but it's by wise stewardship, and that yields growth. So when we recognize that everything we possess comes from God's hand, we understand that we are accountable for how we develop and deploy these divine investments.
Right.
This is kind of wordy opening. So our calling is not simply to maintain what we've been given, but to maximize our God-given potential for His glory and the advancement of His kingdom. All right, so that's really wordy opening, but basically what we're saying is I'm kind of using the parable of the talents as a baseline for this premise. And this came up in a podcast that I did, I think, with Brother Miles. It was one of the bullets. And I had talked about the parable of the talents, but that's kind of the premise of what we want to talk about today is we as Sunday school leaders have been given a job to do. Yeah. Ultimately by God. I mean, it's through our pastor or through another leader, but we've been given a job to do, and so basically don't squander it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, the Bible talks about to tear up the fallow ground so that way that God's word or the seed of the word can be planted inside of us. But the thing is, so He plants the seed, but it's our job and responsibility to nourish those seeds. And so all those things He gives us as far as talents go, and you're not in Sunday school because it's not random. I mean, you're there because you're either good with kids or there's something about you. You have a burden for kids. I mean, God's put you in that position for a reason. And so He's given you these unique talents for kids and for Sunday school that maybe somebody else doesn't have. And if you never do anything with those, if you just kind of like hold them in, and so, and we've talked about this before, where you just have like the most basic Sunday school, which is okay. I mean, the felt charts and the coloring and all that kind of stuff, if that's all you can do for now. But if you have so many more thoughts and ideas in your mind, you have all these things that you could do, but you're not doing it. Yes. You're not nourishing those seeds that God's trying to give you so that you can grow your Sunday school and ultimately grow the kingdom. Yeah.
Well, and I think of it in one way of kind of like you don't have a choice. I mean, you do, but it's kind of like you don't have a choice. It's not like, oh, well, that's not my personality, or, oh, I'm not really into that. If you're in Sunday school as a teacher or a leader in kids ministry or any ministry in the church, you have a mandate from God. And so it's not just this choice like, I don't know. You must do it. Yeah. And so, and you said unique. And so that's point number one is intentional uniqueness. And so God has created each of us with unique strengths and even like, I think I put dispositions and passions. And so we should maximize those.
Yeah. And I think, and not to embarrass you, but if anybody exudes that more, please let me know, other than Brother Gabe, because I mean, you have your hand in so many different things, but the reason is one, you're willing, but two is because you do have this talent about you, which is, even if you don't necessarily know something right away, you will study it and you'll read about it and you'll watch videos on it and you'll listen to
Google.
I mean, you'll
AI.
immerse yourself in it to figure out how you can become the best at it as all possible. And anything that you're involved in our church, everybody can see that it's just different. So, for example, you do the screens for when people preach and you put the message screen up behind it. And when you very first started, like, we still thought they were cool, but if you compare to those early day ones to what you're doing now, it's like totally the night and day.
I have a photo album on my phone.
and it's not just because you've been creating them for so long, but it's because you immersed yourself in that and you started figuring out how can I make them better. You started reading up on the program that you use and all these different ways to clip this and move this. And it's just, you really developed that little seed that God planted in there, because if you didn't, then, I mean, I don't know how much of an effect it would have on the service, but I do know when that goes up there, it kind of sets a mood and people kind of have a better understanding, maybe the direction that the message is supposed to be going.
Right,
and sometimes. So it's actually, I feel like it's such a critical part of our church now that we didn't have before, but if you hadn't developed that, then who knows what would have happened.
Well, I appreciate that. And I do think that that's what part of what we're talking about is we need to, I interrupt myself all the time on these podcasts, but somebody pretty close to me was trying to figure out how to do the same exact program, Photoshop. And I had just kind of been getting into it. I barely knew how to open Photoshop. I mean, I could open it, but I didn't know what the tools were. It was intimidating, all these tools and different things.
There's a lot.
And we had somebody move away that did anything that we did do, which wasn't a whole lot, but when we did, and they were very good. And they had shown me a couple things, but I didn't really know what to do. So I was like, well, I have to learn this. So it's kind of like being thrown in the deep end. And so anyway, this person that's close to me, they wanted to kind of learn, and they were like, thinking about maybe taking a class and buying a book. That might give away age, but and so I what I did, and there's so much I still need to learn and all of that, but what I did is I got on YouTube, just watched all kinds of stuff, started doing it, and then I found this 40-hour free course on YouTube, posted. It was a playlist, 40 hours, and I just immersed myself in it. And then I would bounce out of it and do other stuff as I was learning more, and so I was telling them, you just do it. Just dive in and do it. Now, there's a huge time factor there.
Yeah.
And so that would be, and some people might be technologically challenged or whatever, but so there's a few things that can hold you back. But I guess what I'm saying is dive in with both feet.
Yeah.
And, so we kind of got off track there, but with the intentional uniqueness, I guess, is whatever that gift or talent or leaning that you have. So I enjoy that stuff.
Yeah.
I like it, and I hadn't done it before, but I like it. And I had done video stuff a little bit, and so it's at least in that world. Right. And so I dived in. But if each of us, like I know a lot of Sunday school leaders across, the nation, and we're all different. Yeah. But it's like people can thrive in that difference. Yep. And so instead of us looking and saying, oh, I wish I was like that person, or I wish I was like that Sunday school.
You're unique and one of a kind, and you should be proud of who you are and try to grow all those unique parts about yourself. And don't be looking at somebody else that has a different talent than you and be like, oh, I want to have that instead.
Yeah.
You want to trade yours away or something like that. It's like, no, I got this special gift from God. I'm going to find out any area of the church that I can use it in, and I'm going to grow it every single day and try to get better at it and better at it. And so it's critical, because the longer you nourish the seed, the more likely it's going to fully mature into that tree or whatever. I used an example one time in chapel where I actually bought sequoia seeds. So sequoia is the largest tree in the world.
Yeah, the big
people often think of redwoods, but redwoods are very wide, but not. Sequoias are overall the largest tree species in the world. I mean, they grow massive. I wish I remember the numbers off the top of my head, but the seeds are like actually pretty small.
Oh, wow.
And so I talked about like, we're all unique and one of a kind, and if we use the talents that God's given us and actually nourish them, we can grow into this mighty tree. And so these tiny little seeds, if we don't do anything with these, they're just tiny little, they don't look like nothing. Smaller than a sunflower seed. But if you put them in the ground, if you nourish them with water, if you give them a good soil and you put them in a good spot, eventually with that, they'll grow into this mighty big tree. And that's how we all are. If we'll just take these unique talents and nourish them like you have and like so many of us have, it's hard to say what God can do. It's beyond our imagination.
That could be like a series. You could do that for like, this is our summer series or something.
Yeah.
So number 2 is divine accountability. And so I kind of like, led into it a little bit a moment ago, but if we think of this instead of, I just so often think that people maybe, not anybody we know, of course, but people might look at it like, shrug your shoulders, like, I don't know, maybe I'll be a part or whatever. But this is God's mandate. This is something that God gave us, and so it's like the parable, where he gives the talents away,
right,
or to the servants before he leaves. So I think that God has given us this mandate, and so there's some of us that are really conservative or preservative, and we want to preserve, or let's talk about fear.
Yeah.
There's we did a podcast long time ago on stage fright.
Yep.
And so you're scared to do something, but again, that's not an excuse that holds water. You have to step out of that fear, because that's what the wicked and slothful, servant did, is he was scared.
Right.
And so we don't have a choice. We have to step out and step beyond our fear.
Yeah, I mean, as a leader, you are going to be held accountable for how you were as a leader. And obviously for those folks that are just regular saints every day in the church, they still get involved, they help out and things like that, but they're never put in these leadership positions. They'll be held accountable for different things, but as a leader, you're kind of held to a higher standard, just like we had our leadership class tonight with the pastor, and he talked about that.
Yes.
And you can't be afraid of that you should grab a hold of that and be excited about it and take it and use that as motivation. Mm-hmm. That you have this accountability, like it's important how I behave, it's important how I use these talents. It's important what I do with this Sunday school, for example. Yeah. I shouldn't just let it be dormant and I don't want to use a bad word, lame. So, we don't want Sunday school to be lame,
right?
Because God's not lame. The Bible's not lame. The Bible's exciting. Living for God is exciting. And so we want Sunday school to thrive and grow. And so we shouldn't be intimidated by getting these roles and the fact that God will hold me accountable one day for what I do. You just should take that responsibility and be excited about it, that I've been given an opportunity. Yeah,
instead of being scared, it's kind of like we talk about with the kids. We talk about like God is not lording over you with his hammer, ready to, he does see you when you sin, but he sees you, and he loves you.
Yeah.
And so the same thing is, what an incredible opportunity. It's just like, the greatest leader ever says, hey, I want your help. I mean, that's what if we could look at it like that, God has said, hey, I chose you to do this. And I like what you said, basically it's God's glory. It's for God's glory.
We're giving him glory by what we do, If you think of the story of Joseph, who came out. He was put in prison. His brothers sold him into slavery. He goes and gets put in prison, and he's accused of wrongly by the Pharaoh's wife, and then he gets thrown in jail. He's like, hey, don't forget about me to these folks, and they forget about him. He's lived there for years, and then he gets out, and he gets given these responsibilities. And instead of cowering, like, oh, I'm afraid this is too much for me. I don't think I can handle it. I mean, if you think about being responsible for preserving the food for millions of people, you're number 2 in the entire kingdom where he was.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And he could have cowered and like ran off and like, I can't do this.
Yeah, especially after being in prison.
Oh my goodness.
All this,
So but that's not what he did. He took the leadership role by the reins and said, I'm going to do everything I can with this. I'm going to give God glory in everything through it all. And because of that, I mean, if you read through the story, I mean, those people all were fed. They never went without. Even when it got towards the end of the 7 years of famine, they were still eating well. They still had enough to provide. It was all because he took that leadership role by the reins and just said, I'm taking off with this.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna step into that role.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one thing I was going to say is we have done this story many times in Sunday school, and so maybe we could give a little bit of some of what we've done, just as an example, since this is came in backstage.
Yeah.
I just thought of so we've done it a few different ways, but one way I remember that we've done it is where the rich man leaves, and he gives them all the talents. And so we have the guy with the 10 talents. He starts a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
He starts a restaurant, and that's how we introduce our snack. And then the second one has a store. Right,
storefront on the market. So he has like swords and helmets and different things.
Basically all of our backstage props.
Yeah,
or not all, but a bunch of them.
Quite a few,
And so he's got a table full, and of course we let the kids, come around or whatever. Yeah. And so, and then of course we usually try to make the one servant, he's just dumb, and he goes and hides his. I
remember we did it. I think might not have been the most recent time, but it was in transition. We had torn down a whole bunch, and there was a bunch of wood like piled up over here. And I couldn't remember who the one talent one was, but whoever it was buried it underneath
the wood pile.
Wood pile. I was just like,
that's awesome.
I mean, I guess that's a good place to put it. We just don't want kids going over there.
Yeah.
But there's nails and staples and all kinds of stuff.
So anyway, that's one way that you can do the story of the talents, or the parable of the talents.
And there's just so many different ways you can go about this. And if you're looking for more ideas, we talked before this about Brother Booker's podcast. Apostolic Children's Ministry, and he mentioned a bunch of names of other podcasts of other children's ministries.
If I remember, I have them on here, and we'll try to mention them at the end.
And so there's all these resources now, apostolic resources. Even if you, for some reason, don't want to buy the Acts in Action curriculum, which you should, hint.
Buy that. Yes.
But for some reason, if that's maybe not in your church budget, because everybody's budget's different. But if you're just starting off small, just listen to these podcasts, and there's just going to be ideas galore out there for how you can go about these types of stories.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, number 3, growth mindset. And so, we have mentioned this before because this is something Pastor talks about all the time. But basically, we and the church and Sunday school, everything, God designed it to grow.
Yep.
And so we talk about, if we do our part, God will, do his part. And so our job is to remove those inhibitors to growth. And so often we're talking about, being excellent and all of that. So I think that with us as Sunday school leaders, we have to work on, I guess, development.
Yeah.
And again, I keep on coming back to, it's not just a choice like, well, you can decide to develop yourself or not. If you're going to do this thing that God has handed you, you must develop. And you just mentioned some of the ways that you can, and there's so many different ways you can, but you must develop, because if you are If you're standing still, you're going backwards.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. There's no such thing as being in neutral. You're either rolling backwards down that hill or you're moving forward.
Yes.
So if you feel like, oh, I'm in a place where we haven't been going much, you're not in neutral. You're always either going backwards or moving forward. And so we always need to be striving to be better and investing and having that growth mindset. Because like you said, nothing God created did he create it for it to not grow. Everything he created it was to grow. I mean, the basics. We think about plants, think about human beings. I mean, we all grow. Some of us grow a little bit more one way once we get older. But he's always meant for us to grow, and we should always want to grow in our knowledge of God. We should always want to grow our relationship. I mean, all these things, we can go through it. And that's the same for any ministry that you're involved in, and especially your children's ministry. If you have had only 5 kids in your Sunday school for the past 10 years and not had any more than that, that's not what God wants. He wants that to grow. However, that has to happen. Every area is different. Every area of the country is unique.
Sure.
So you have to figure out, how are we going to grow this Sunday school based on the area we live in? Some places they can run. I think Brother Booker does buses where they're driving like 45 minutes one way and stuff like that. And the logistics of that, I can't even imagine how that would work, and the fuel and stuff. In some areas they can do that. Some areas don't have that ability to do that. I mean, here we do a bus locally that goes into Centralia and Chehalis, which is pretty close to each other, but that's what we have the ability to do. People go do outreach on the weekends to go and talk to these kids as parents and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of ways you can do it. You just have to figure out, in our area, how can we grow this?
Yes.
And do it.
Yeah, because that's what we're designed to do. And not to blast anybody, but if you're stagnant, that's not God's will.
This is us encouraging somebody. Like, don't let yourself stay stagnant.
Yeah. And so the other part of this with growth is, when you are like working out physically, when you're lifting weights, right?
Yeah.
When you are at the point of what they call muscle failure, that is the point where you need to push yourself the most, because that's where you're going to see the most growth, right? Because you're tearing the muscle fiber, all that science. Okay, so when you are at maximum discomfort is where you actually are starting to grow. Yeah. And so I used to say something to the young people, or I still do, I guess, but I say this is, when we go to pray, and we used to have these weekly prayer meetings, and I remember when I was a kid, and I hated it. It was so boring, And so I would like just kneel down at the pew and try to kill time, whatever. And then finally I had this kind of like, I guess, a mini revelation that like, well, I'm here anyway. I guess I might as well pray. And so I ended up, having some good prayer meetings. But what I tell the youth is, when you start praying in like a prayer meeting or just in yourself, when you start praying and you pray and you're pushing, and then you finally get to this point where you don't want to stop, and maybe you have to because of time constraints and various things, but when you finally get to the point where you don't want to stop or you don't feel like stopping, that's where you've just begun. Right. That's the point of the breakthrough.
Yeah, if you're asking yourself, I feel this is just really uncomfortable, I feel a little bit stressed out and stuff like that, that's going to come with growth. That's going to come, like you said, you should feel those things. If you're not feeling a little bit of discomfort in some areas because of growth, then you're not growing. I was thinking of a story back when I was in really good shape, which was many years ago now. I was 22, I had a goal in my mind.
You're just in a different shape.
Yeah, round is a shape. Listen, when I was 22, I was in really good shape. I had a goal in mind. I think I was 190 pounds at the time, and I wanted to bench press 300 pounds. I said, I want to bench press 300 pounds. I don't care how I do it. And I used to work out twice a day. And so one of the things that I learned from a guy that had like the record for Washington State bench press, he said, I do this workout called a tear down. So I start off with just the bar. I do it as many times as I can until I get tired. And then I start adding weights. And I keep doing that until I get to the point to where I can only do it one time or I almost drop it on myself. And then I go backwards. So I work all the way up to this weight.
Wow.
So there was a time where I literally would start off with nothing. Then I would add 5, 10 plates on each side till I get up to the point where I'd almost drop it. And then I start taking off one at a time and doing the same exact thing. By the time you get to just the bar, which weighs like 45 pounds,
yeah.
you literally can maybe do like 2 because your arms are just like
Shaking,
doing like this.
yeah.
And at first I'm like, this is just the craziest thing ever. And it took me about a year and a half, I think, of doing that. And at one point I was 190 pounds, but I could bench press 300 pounds. But it was only because, and it was extremely uncomfortable. I mean, the next day, it was like I felt like I had ripped my muscles out of the bone. I mean, it was just awful. But that discomfort eventually got to the place where I ultimately growed. And
yes.
I literally, but I ultimately got to the place where I had grown, and it would never have been possible if I'd not have been uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so if you have these places that you are envisioning that God's placed in your heart, like this is where God wants to take our Sunday school, you have to know to get to those high places, to reach those big, high achievements, it's going to take a lot of discomfort along the road, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
It's going to take a lot of work, sometimes months, sometimes maybe even years of work to get to that place where God's ultimately wanting to take you or your Sunday school.
Yeah. I think I wrote something that's already gone, but the growth is always preceded by discomfort.
Yep.
And that's, you talked about, I have my fingers in all kinds of pies around the church. And that's been kind of the story of my life in church ministry is I have always been uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it started when I started playing drums. He wasn't even pastor at the time, but pushed me to play drums. And I was so uncomfortable. And I wasn't any good. I mean, I would practice a minimum of 2 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
When I was like 14-ish, I started practicing 2 hours a day.
Hey, when I started church 14 years ago, you were awesome at drums.
Yeah. There's a whole nother level now.
Yeah. Listen, Pastor, if you ever listen to this podcast, when you get Gabe back in the cage, just saying.
My son has surpassed me.
He's very talented.
Yeah. All right, number 4, investment. And so this kind of goes back to that parable directly, about investing. Your leadership, if I could say it right, your leadership potential reaches its fullest expression when you develop other leaders. Mm. And I think that this can apply to staff, and that's kind of what I thought about when I wrote it. Yeah. This can apply to staff, but it can apply to kids as well. And kids in our ministry.
100%. Well, I mean, so there is investing in yourself, which is definitely what you should do, but this is more investing in your team and those people around you, which includes the Sunday school kids, because maybe one day when they get to be older, when they're not allowed in Sunday school anymore, because of you investing in them, one, they might help out in Sunday school as well, but 2, which is the ultimate, is that they'll stay in church for the rest of their life, and they'll attribute that to the fact that you invested in them in Sunday school when they were young.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that's you got to keep the big picture in mind. Yes, you want to invest in them to develop them to potentially even help out in Sunday school, but ultimately we're investing in these kids to give them a reason to stick around when maybe that's the only reason they have, or maybe they're the only person in their home that's even going to church, which we have several kids in our church right now that are like that, and they started coming to our church via the Sunday school bus.
Sunday school bus, yeah. Well, and the thing is, we have so many younger people in our church that are like, part of the backbone of our music ministry or various things that it came out of Sunday school.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I use Adrian, my son, all the time for an example, so I don't want to overdo it, but he started playing drums in Sunday school.
Didn't Matthew start playing drums in Sunday school too?
He might have.
Yeah, it's been a long time ago now.
It's been a long time ago, but...
Yeah, but both of them, very young, and critical part of our music program. I mean...
Yeah, oh yeah, both of those guys are...
Yeah, and probably not where Adrian thought he would be maybe 2 years ago, because now he's like the main piano guy.
Yeah.
And but you can just see that investment that was made in him when he was younger has gotten him to a place, not just in his musical abilities, but it's really his work ethic is where it's gotten him to where he's at. And it was all that investment when he was younger that's made him into who he is right now.
Yeah.
And if we could only see what those kids would be, if we invested in them, I think we would all have no problems investing as much time and as much effort as possible if we could only see what they will turn out to be. It's really difficult, but I promise
and it's in a blink of an eye too. It happens quick.
Hey girl, we got one of my little ones in here. He's not so little anymore. He's getting to be a little bit too big for his britches, but it really happens overnight. They go from being little tiny chasing you around to all of a sudden being almost as tall as you, although they'll never be as tall as you. Hint, hint. And no matter how big they get, they can't take you. But but it really does happen overnight. And so one thing is we don't have all the time in the world.
Right.
You need to invest in them today.
Got to invest in them.
You got to invest in them right now. Don't wait till next week. Don't wait till you're ready. Don't wait till your church has a bigger budget or whatever is holding you guys back. Invest in them right now. Yeah.
So I had a list of questions as it's 3 questions. Am I becoming complacent? Have I settled for mediocrity? And am I investing in others as I have been invested in? And so just really quick, I think this is something that I try to, it's not a super systematic approach or anything, but I try to do this with myself, is I try to evaluate every once in a while, and I just recently have done this within the Sunday school realm, is am I becoming complacent?
Yep.
Because it can be easy to be like, okay, we got a good thing going. We got a good system in place.
Yep.
And it's easy to become complacent where we're not like pushing for that discomfort.
Yeah.
And we're maintaining. And I don't think it's God's will for us to maintain.
No.
And then the second part of that, am I settling for mediocrity? Well, we would always say, well, no, of course not. But I think that so often we do settle for mediocrity because it's the easy way out. None of us admit that we're lazy, but sometimes we are.
Oh, man. I wrote down a title of a message during service today that said, there's no easy button in God's church.
Yeah.
You know, there's that whole thing.
What was that, Staples?
That had the easy button? We hit the easy button, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That doesn't exist in the God's kingdom.
I want to get one of those.
Yeah. We would all love to be able to push the easy button, but that's just not how it works in God's kingdom. Brother Cody Marks preached in our October conference about God will never take you down the easy. Basically, he won't take you down the easy path. He's always going to take you on the long route or the more difficult trip. And so don't expect it to be easy. And don't try to figure out a way to only do it the easy way.
Yeah.
You got to work hard. It's going to take work no matter what you want to try to do. If you try to take the easy way out, it's not going to go where God wants it to.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this in another podcast and it got a lot of comments, but we were talking about God's will. I can't remember if it was with you or somebody else, but talking about God's will, and so many people, they're like, it was Brother Matthew. So many people are like, they try something and they get a flat tire and this goes wrong, and they're like, it must not be God's will. Really, we should flip that over, because if you look at all the examples in the Bible, you should be like, this must be God's will, because it's more difficult than I thought.
If the devil wasn't so interested, then you could be like, okay, maybe it's not. But the fact that he is so interested, or that things are just coming around that are trying to get in your way, that should give you a real good kick and say, okay, this is definitely what God wants me to do.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, let's recap. So, intentional uniqueness. And I guess my main idea behind that is that God has created us. You know, we talk about, like, to kids, you are special.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think as adults sometimes we forget that. But you are special. God made you how he wanted you. He didn't make Brother Philip Booker, you just mentioned, a good friend of ours, is awesome. He is the Sunday school guru. He's going to hate that. He is the man when it comes to Sunday school. But he did not create us to be like him.
Mm-mm.
He created us to be what we do here at our Sunday school. And so that's our, the uniqueness that we have is by design, and it's intentional.
And stop comparing yourself amongst yourselves. You're fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and God didn't take time to make junk. You're special. And
hey, that's my line from the skit that we do. You remember that in Art of Christmas?
Yeah.
Listen to me. I don't take time to make junk.
Yeah.
So we did I did a picture. This has been a few weeks ago now with in the Narnia theme with the snow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent that to in a chat, and I can't remember. I think it was Brother Bradshaw said, "I want to be like Brother Baker when I grow up." So Brother Bradshaw, you got to be your own unique self.
That's right.
And he's got a podcast too.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 2 is divine accountability. Yeah. And just remember that this mandate, this job that we have is from God.
It's a serious responsibility, but don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, it's a serious responsibility, so don't go and hide it. Don't go bury it. Yep. But also be excited that, I mean, man, God asked me to do this.
You should feel honored. The God of this universe has asked you to take on something that's so vital to the kingdom.
That's inspirational.
Yeah. Gets me excited.
Number 3, growth mindset. So we got to have a growth mindset. And growth is always preceded by discomfort.
Yep.
You got to step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. In order to grow, you're going to have to be uncomfortable. Just the realities. And
then finally, investment. We need to invest in ourselves, invest in our team, invest in the kids. Yeah. And it's something that, again, like we said in the opening, it needs to be with the idea of multiplication, not preserving.
Right.
I mean, we want to preserve our doctrine and all that, but we want to multiply.
When you invest in the right things, it'll always pay off.
Yes. All right, really quick before we end, it's really hard to read because I don't have this thing auto turn over.
And do you have 20/10 vision? What is going on?
So if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. Don't I sound like a YouTuber?
Yeah.
Like and subscribe and hit that bell.
Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any episodes.
Yeah. But if you're listening to audio and you want to see a video or look at
I think
us,
several of these podcasts also have YouTube channels too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so. But ours is, if you Google or YouTube Kidman Backstage, you come up. The actual channel name is @Gabe-Baker. And then there's some other podcasts going through them really quick. This is not all of them. I need to add some more. But Apostolic Children's Ministry 2.0 with Brother Philip Booker.
That's my second favorite podcast.
Yeah.
This one's my favorite.
Apostolic Children's Network with Chris Bradshaw. And then Growing Up with Papa with Brother Jason Ashley. And Sunday School Minute with Brother Eric Stender. And that's a quick podcast. It's short.
Like 10 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. But it's really good. And then Truism with Brother James Pelletier. So those are some podcasts. Check those out.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, well, that's a wrap.
Great.